I used to work as a mall Santa, but one boy's Christmas list made me quit. It was the third time that day that I felt an unnatural warmth begin where the child was sitting on my leg. I'd grown past being disgusted by it. As I felt the first drops hit my leg inside the suit and begin to roll down my leg, I lifted the boy under the armpits, set him on his feet next to the chair, and stood up. He started crying, and the piece of paper he was gripping tightly in his little fist fell from his hand as he smothered his tears in his palms. "Hey, little man, it's okay," I said. "It happens. Let's get you to your mom so you can get cleaned up." I looked up and saw a pretty blonde woman with arms full of shopping bags was already hurrying over, alerted either by the tears or the enormous wet spot on her son's pants. "I'm his mom," she said through rapid breaths from the hustle over. "Hi, ma'am," I said as she walked up. "It seems like we've had a bit of an accident." The mom's face flushed, clearly a bit embarrassed. "Oh, I'm so sorry. This has never happened before," she said. "It's really okay. Part of the job," I said, chuckling. The little dude was still bawling, which, I mean, fair. I generally don't love being covered in urine either, now not being an exception. I gave him my very best Santa head pat and told him again that it was okay. "Please, Santa, you have to let us get you cleaned up," the mom said. "Really? It's okay. I've got spare pants in the mall supply closet, and I can wash down real quick in there, too," I told her. "Can I at least pay you for the cleaning costs?" I quickly glanced down at her hand and saw no rings. The mall already handles all of that. "But maybe you would let me buy you a drink sometime?" I asked, hope in my voice. I thought maybe I could turn this pee situation into something nice, after all. The mom smiled this adorable, bashful smile, some of the flush returning to her cheeks. "That would be lovely," she said. "But you better not tell Mrs. Klaus." "Oh, don't worry. There's no Mrs. Klaus," I said, laughing. She grabbed a slip of scrap paper and a pen from a purse buried under the shopping bags and scribbled down her phone number. "My name's Molly, by the way," she said. "Give me a call when you're finished here, Santa." She grinned and walked off. I was thrilled. I ended up getting washed up and changed, and back out to work in just about 15 minutes. The rest of the day was pretty low-key. No more urine incidents. At the end of the day, I started helping tear down some of the parts of the North Pole scene that I sit in when I noticed a crumpled piece of paper. Remembering that Molly's boy had dropped his list when he came up, I absent-mindedly shoved it into my pocket to give to her when we met up again. After finishing packing up and getting changed, I jumped in my car and raced home. I wanted to at least take a shower and get myself cleaned up, to prove to her that I wasn't just some loser in a urine-soaked Santa costume. Getting up to my apartment, I pulled out the paper in my pocket and dropped it on my kitchen island. Grabbing my cell phone, I spun the piece of paper with Molly's phone number on it so that it faced me and dialed her number. As the phone rang, I noticed some bright colors on the crumpled list to Santa. The little guy must have drawn a picture for the jolly, red-suited fellow. I pulled it closer to me and was about to take a look when I heard the line connect. "Hello?" I heard Molly ask. "Hi," I said cheerfully, absently pushing aside the drawing. "It's Santa." Molly laughed. "I've been looking forward to your call," she said. "I'm glad to hear it," I said. "Would you be up for having that drink tonight?" "Of course," she replied, a smile in her tone. She gave me the address of a favorite pub near her place. I promised to grab a quick shower and then text her when I was on my way. "Oh, and Santa," she said right before I hung up. "Why don't you bring that Santa suit for later? You never know, I just might end up on your naughty list." She giggled, then hung up. "So you can be sure I packed the Santa outfit." I took a quick shower, with multiple dousings of soap to prize the faint scent of pee from me. I figured that might be a turn-off for Molly. I mean, she's Santa suit kinky, but I'm not sold she's also golden shower kinky. Getting out and getting dressed in a hurry, I snagged my cell phone and Molly's son's list from the counter as I headed out the door. On the elevator ride down to the parking area, I shot Molly a quick text telling her I was on my way. Fidgeting with the paper in my hands, I remembered that I had wanted to look at the picture to Santa. Opening it up, I saw a nightmare etched in crayon across the page. Within the childish scratchings, I could make out a red-suited man with a thick white beard and a Santa hat lying strapped to a bed. Kneeling above him, a woman with blonde hair and no clothes was holding a thin gray object in the air. Dark red crayon erupted from the red-suited man's neck. The boy had drawn his mother murdering a man dressed as Santa mid-sexcapade. The elevator reached the ground floor and I stood still in shock for so long that the doors opened and then reclosed, assuming I had gotten out. I kept staring at the drawing, and I noticed, seemingly muted by the geyser of red, a shape under the bed. It looked like a small boy, huddled, hands over his ears, hiding under the fountaining viscera. I gasped, and took an involuntary step back, almost tripping over the bag full of Santa suit I had set on the floor next to me. The elevator started moving again, startling me. I yelped. When the doors opened, it was at my floor, and I rushed out, bumping into my neighbor, who said something pissy to my back as they headed into the elevator. I unlocked my door, rushed in, and slammed it behind me, throwing the deadbolt. As the shock and adrenaline worked its way through my veins, I fell back against the door, slowly sliding down it until I sat on the floor. Eventually, I broke down and cried, grasping the drawing, the warning the boy had given me, tightly in my hand, just like he had this morning. And that was when my phone started ringing. It was Molly. I barricaded the front door to the cheerful ringtone as it rang over and over and over. When I felt the blood rushing in my ears begin to calm to a normal level, I took a few more deep breaths to settle my nerves. I could feel my chest heaving, and I tried to slow my breathing and embrace the silence of my home. Silence. The phone had stopped. I grabbed it off the floor from where I had dropped it and looked at the screen. 5 missed calls, 3 texts, no voicemails. So Molly may be crazy, but not crazy enough to think that I'd check my voicemails. I'm in my 20s, after all. I was terrified to check the texts, but the need to know was overwhelming me. I pulled up the notifications. The first was just Santa. The second was the standard follow-up. The third, though, was a little more ominous. I hope you're not getting cold feet, Santa. I'd hate to have to come find you. Creepy as all hell, but at least she didn't know where I lived. The paranoid part of my brain thought, but maybe she does. But no, of course not. That would be ridiculous. Taking one more deep breath, I stood up and went back into the kitchen. Grabbing a cup from the drying rack, I filled it up with water, took a big gulp, and set it down on the kitchen island. Not really paying attention, I set it down on the drawing that had filled me with such horror. The glass must not have fully dried on the rack, as around the edge of the base water slowly creeped across the paper. The child hiding under the bed began to look murkier, the paper turning wavy as it became more saturated. I shook my head at the insanity of this all when it hit me. The child hiding under the bed. Fuck. I called the police. I explained that after a kid pissed on me, his mom agreed to go on a date with me, but the kid snuck me a drawing that promised a porno, snuff film style conclusion to the night. And the cops realized this was an absolutely horrifying situation and it was time to rush over to her house and take care of everything. Except you and I both know that's total bullshit. It's the week before Christmas, and the cops are plenty busy without this strange-ass story of mine. So when the cop on the line told me, yeah, bud, we'll go check out that pub you mentioned as soon as we can to see if there are any women matching your description, I really couldn't blame him. I thanked him for his time and decided it was time for me to step up. This kid needed Santa. The first thing I did was call Molly. My hand was shaking so bad, I almost dropped the phone. It rang 3 times, and I figured she was pissed at me and wouldn't answer when the line clicked and I heard her voice. Hey, Santa, she said, sounding irritated. Molly, hey, I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. What's with the stand-up? I didn't expect you to be a jerk. Oh, Molly, I'm so sorry, I said. I hope the shakiness of my voice sounded like me being upset about being late, rather than my abject terror of this woman. She didn't need to know the gig was up just yet. The power went down in this part of town, and I got stuck in the damn elevator. And, of course, giant metal box, there was no service in there. Hopefully she wouldn't think to verify my alibi until after I'd gotten that kid to safety. Molly took a really deep breath, then sighed into the phone. I'm sorry, she said. I was really angry at you, but being trapped in an elevator sounds really terrifying. Look, it might be a little late to hit the pub. I just gave up on you and left 10 minutes ago and it was packed. Molly, I am really just so sorry. I feel like I really messed this up, I said. Don't be silly, she said. It's hardly your fault that the power went out. Like I said, it's probably too late to get a table at the pub. But maybe we could try another place. That would be awesome, I told her, a grin on my face. This was going smoothly. Too smoothly, but I wasn't going to overthink this. I just needed a chance to snatch her kid and then run with him to the cops. Forgive me if this is too forward, Molly, but I was thinking I could make it up to you by bringing over a bottle of wine and we could have a nice little date at home. That way you could be there for your little guy since it's so late. That's very forward, Molly said with a sharp tone. Luckily for you, Santa, I like forward. I sighed in relief. Wonderful. I have a bottle of Shadow Graysec Bordeaux that I think would pair very nicely with some charming conversation. She laughed, and it was as musical as ever. How was she so pleasant? I'd love that, she said, and gave me her address. I'll run back up to my place to grab the Bordeaux, and then I'll head right over. Now, it was time to get ready. If Molly wanted Santa, she was going to get motherfucking Santa. 30 minutes later, I pulled up to her address wearing the full Santa suit. It was go time. I had spent the whole ride over blasting hard rock and getting myself fired up. I needed to be ready for anything. I got out of the car and adjusted Santa's bowl full of Jelly Belly. Walking up to the front door, I felt my hands shaking. I stabbed at the doorbell and missed. The shaking was so bad. I took a couple deep breaths, then reached out and rung the doorbell with confidence. It only took about 10 seconds before the door opened. She must have been near the door. Molly swung the door open. She was wearing a flowing black robe and had her hair pinned up. Hello, Santa, she said, her voice sultry as all hell. Hi, Molly, I managed to get out. Now I have to take a second here to explain something. I was terrified of this woman being a closet Santa murderer, but she had gone from cute girl next door at the mall to the smoking hot sex goddess standing right in front of me and looking at me with eyes that seemed to say that she was going to eat me alive and I was going to enjoy every second of it. Seriously, all I had was a crayon drawing. Maybe her kid was just weird. Kids can be weird. So when she grabbed the front of my Santa suit and pulled me inside, my resistance was minimal. I barely even heard her shut and lock the door behind us. All I could think of was the flash of thigh I saw when she moved, and the smell of roses that seemed to float around her like a spring mist. Door closed, Molly turned back around to face me. She slowly stroked the sash that held her robe shut. Well, Santa, she said, have I been a good girl this year? I sure think so, I told her, watching those fingers slowly loosen the sash. Oh no, she said, let's see what I can do to convince you that I'm naughty. And with it she pulled the sash apart and let the robe slide off of her shoulders. Holy shit, I managed. Exactly, Molly said. Then she grabbed the front of my suit, yanked me to her, and kissed me like I have never been kissed before. Which is probably why I didn't think anything of her grabbing my wrists until I felt cold metal. The handcuffs clicked into place, my hands secured in front of me. Molly's eyes narrowed, and she slammed me against the nearest wall. She pulled out the pin holding her hair up and stuck it to my throat. I could feel exactly how sharp it was. "Do you think I'm stupid?" she snarled, the viciousness changing her voice into something entirely different from what I had heard from her before. "I know you know. The brat must have got a hint to you somehow. But it's too late for you now, you stupid, stupid man. The annual Christmas sacrifice will go on. I will bathe in a fountain of Santa blood tonight." As she laughed and pressed the pointed tip of the pen tighter to my neck, only one thing was going through my mind: it's possible I could have handled this better. How was I going to get out of this?